Hello? helping to accelerate the growth of video ad spend. And this is the first step towards holistic video planning. For me, the next critical step will be to adapt their TVs to mobile devices, especially because we are still receiving a lot of ads that are not, really adapted for mobile devices, and it's a missing opportunity for advertisers to make the most of their investment.
Great, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I think that's very true that there is a huge opportunity in mobile for video that hasn't been exploited yet. Perhaps Melissa, did you have any additional points that you could add to that question?
Sure, absolutely. Certainly, we've seen tremendous growth. I'm certain after at AppNexus with 10 years of experience in display programmatic, we're certainly seeing the benefits of the hard work we've done to kind of clean up the world of programmatic and apply that to the video market. So we're seeing the same growth as well, and I think I'm going to touch on it in a few of the other points. Following up in terms of the overall inventory and how we're seeing differences in growth between not just the endpoint playouts, whether that's OTT or mobile environments, but also the changes in growth within inventory types, which I can speak to in a few moments.
Great. Perfect. So going off the point of mobile, maybe we could move on to the second question, which is mobile plays a key role in the growth of digital video, as we just touched on there. What are the best practices around advertising that we can learn from? But perhaps, Paul, I know that you've been doing a fair bit on the measurement of mobile and the open SDK that you've been involved with at Integral Ad Science. Would you like to comment on that?
Hey Ben, yeah, of course. I think in the past, mobile environments and particularly mobile app environments have been quite challenging when it comes to verification and measurement. And so the way in which I think the industry is trying to resolve that is through the Open Measurement SDK. The SDK itself was built by IS and it is now governed by the IAB Tech Lab. And what we hope is that the continued adoption of the open source SDK by publishers and by vendors will really open up measurement across mobile app and of course across mobile app video. So we really hope that SDK and the open measurement will solve sort of mobile app challenges over the next sort of 12 to 18 months, and that of course will lead to opportunities for both the buy side and the sell side when it comes to mobile app video. I guess the second point I wanted to touch on, I know we sort of touched on it briefly, was looking at developing creative specifically for mobile. What we tend to see is that just a TV ad won't necessarily work as well for a mobile environment as a mobile specific ad. As a buyer, you need to think of sort of developing ads for mobile environments, but also think of the type of inventory you're running on. An in-feed environment is likely to differ to a news publisher, for example. We're all aware of the importance of vertical videos as well, sort of following how people use their sort of smartphone devices as well. And I guess what we're really sort of seeing at the moment is that we're encouraging buyers to look at things like creative wear out and viewability on mobile campaigns, and understanding the impact of maybe using the same creative across the same demographic on mobile for an extended period of time, and trying to refresh that to try and improve engagement and viewability rates.
Makes sense. Great. And Melissa, on the inventory side of things, what have you observed there?
Absolutely, and taking a few steps back and kind of looking at how we're talking about the various endpoints. If we put the nuances and the technology nuances, if you will, aside for a moment, in order to grow total digital video inventory from a seller's point of view, we need to consider the fact that not all inventory is the same, but a holistic operations approach is required. So if we're talking about outstream, that may have a certain operational criteria that might look very different from in-stream 50s or 30s, for example. And if I'm an advertiser and I'm trying to reach a consumer through both whatever audience attributes may be available to me, but also somewhat contextually related to the content itself. I want to be able to reach that at scale. And given the numbers that we've seen, scaling is very difficult overall in digital video, but when you further fragment it by the endpoint, that can create a much more siloed approach in terms of holistic operations. So what we like to see is making sure that, on the publisher side at least, that we're managing our operational inventory based on, yes, endpoints, should there be certain targeting criteria, but also trying to get to scale so that you're able to deliver against the content, regardless of where that content may be consumed.
Great. Thank you for that. So the third question was, the supply of digital video advertising inventory is still being established. How can publishers better monetize their inventory and meet demands of that inventory source? Melissa, perhaps we could go back to you for that one as well.
Sorry, can you repeat the last part of that question?
Sure. So the supply of digital video advertising inventory is still being established. How can publishers better monetize the inventory they have and meet the demands for that inventory?
Yeah, thanks, Paul. Absolutely. So, looking at the optimization of that, again, this is a world where we've seen the verticalization, for instance, in the television industry, rapidly changing in front of our eyes. And of course, one of the main reasons is to kind of consolidate that fragmentation of viewership. And we're almost in a market now where we need to put all those pieces back together again. If we want to have a meaningful digital video business, we've got to be able to optimize inventory across all demand channels. So we talk a lot about not just the fragmentation of devices, but also the fragmentation of how I'm selling my inventory. If I'm a seller, it's very important to me that I may maintain my direct sales, but I also have to be able to manage inventory allocation and delivery optimization through other demand options, whether those are more traditional upfront buys or spot, programmatic, and the various deal types that we have available. But looking at that holistic is quite important because, again, just like the fragmentation of the screens, you're further fragmenting across different demand channels if you're not holistically overviewing that. And I think an important point to point out as well is that in all of this and the experience that we've had, over 10 years in digital programmatic, we now, we're in a place where we're able to address the future of digital video in a way that is likely much smarter than in the past. If you think about it, the advertisers and the sellers, to some degree, have the same challenges. They both need to set their budgets and their media plans. They have to be able to manage forecasting. They have to manage contracts for guaranteed deliveries and deliver against those commitments on the sell side. And so the most optimal way to manage that inventory is having a strategy, having a holistic approach to what my inventory is, to yield optimizing that inventory across all demand channels and all endpoints.
That makes a lot of sense. Caroline, from the Teed side and the publishers that you've been working with, are they similar challenges that you've seen there or anything unique?
Well, for me, the obvious answer to this for publishers to get more video inventory is to have outstream inventory. As you are placing video content at the heart of the article, you are creating massive inventory without having to produce expensive video content to go with the ad. So that's for me an obvious answer to this issue that advertisers are facing when it comes to creating video inventory.
Okay, great. We've seen that cross-screen planning is important, particularly for TV and digital video. What tools, best practices, and measurement systems can help with this? Perhaps, Paul, I can pass that over to you first.
Yeah, sure. I think sort of TV used to be, I guess, relatively simple to plan and buy, but it's so much more complex now. TV needs to be considered alongside VOD, and I think in general on the agency side, you don't really have TV teams anymore. You often have AV teams, so there's often collaboration in terms of planning both TV VOD, and also sort of considering things like, you know, social and mobile. We haven't really touched on social at the moment and its importance sort of across video. But I guess in terms of best practice from our side, you know, we would always recommend using verification and optimization tools when buying video. So as a buyer, you know, through programmatic channels, you can use, you know, pre-bid technology that historically has been attached to display, but for some time now is now also available for video. And those pre-bid tools allow buyers to, you know, sort of boost viewability programmatically across video, protects the brand, and also sort of, you know, sort of reduce the impact of fraud. So I think that's very much best practice. I mean, I'll touch on the open source SDK as well. You know, currently, you know, from a measurement perspective, this is really attached to the app environment. But I think where we in the industry sort of see this moving on is moving on to the web environment, and then in the future across OTT. So as brands, you know, increasingly look for, you know, sort of verification across their entire buy, the open source SDK will hopefully sort of help solve that across multiple environments, not just the app environment, but in the future sort of OTT as well.
Great, and I have a follow-up question from one of our live listeners at the moment, and that's regarding has the premium video market answered the advertisers' questions about audience measurement, viewability, brand safety, and transparency, or are they still requiring the tools that you mentioned even in a premium video environment?
So in terms of the premium environment, yes, there is still a demand from brands for you know, sort of premium publishers to adopt verification technology, and I guess there's a couple of reasons for that. The first reason is brands tend to, you know, want to run sort of discrepancy-free viewability campaigns with publishers, and again they look to premium publishers to boost viewability rates, and of course one of the easiest ways to do that is to use the same tech as your brand, and ensure that any mid-campaign optimizations you make, you know, sort of have an immediate impact on the brand. There's probably less pressure across the premium environment when it comes to fraud, but there is certainly pressure around brand safety and premium environments, particularly, you know, those breaking news publishers that do potentially produce content that sometimes, you know, brands do not necessarily want to appear against.
Great. So now that we've seen that half of display advertising spend is traded programmatically, how can programmatic trading help deliver digital video advertising at scale? Melissa, perhaps I can pass that one to you.
Sure, absolutely. Again, I think that we have history on our side. You know, approaching 10 years of managing kind of the programmatic and display world, we're able to look at that supply chain and ensure that we're managing this, eliminating any sort of intermediary factors to the points we were just talking about. We know this is a world where we're moving from a kind of a one-to-many in TV, if you will, and the transition from a TV, if we're talking about TV content, into the digital world with endpoints like OTT. And we're going to a one-to-one, and we all know that it has its own implications. With GDPR aside, there's challenges that we've had just in the display world that we've learned from. And these have benefits for us to a great degree, because as an industry, we've cleaned up the fraud and the transparency and worked very hard to use the many great tools that exist in the marketplace. We're able to learn from those experiences, and I believe apply them in a smart way to the future of the digital video. And, you know, the current regulations, I think, also come at a beautiful time for the market, where we're able to understand how to operate in the best interest of all parties, including the consumer. So I think experience is on our side, and the important point is that we remember where we've been and ensure that where we're going not only takes advantage of the great innovation to come, but has a mindset towards the past and those learnings.
Great. And on a related question, one that's just come in live now is sounds like a publisher. So what type of sales strategy can we as a publisher take to be able to get some of that TV budget? Do you have any top tips there?
some of the TV budget, the buying TV budget for a publisher. Is that right?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great. Sure, absolutely. I mean, I think if it's traditional TV buying, where again, I'm come from a one-to-many relationship, scale is important. I need to be able to reach. And back to our earlier slides and some of the challenges that we're seeing with some of the endpoints, consolidation is important. And while I appreciate the challenges that maybe in-app or mobile has, many of us all have great technologies that are now able, with the love of this open source that we've spoken about, able to overcome some of the challenges in those endpoints. So if you're a publisher who has video content, wherever that video content runs, it is much more attractive to be selling those 15 or 30-second spots as a holistic buy, as opposed to parsing that out, because otherwise the inventory may not be scalable. Now, of course, if that audience can also be aggregated with other audience to make it more interesting, that's even more powerful. But scale matters. TV is a scale game. It's been a one-to-many. It's moving to a one-to-one, and a one-to-one becomes very hard because it's further fragmentation. So my suggestion would be to ensure that you're consolidating all of your inventory, and outside of specific targeting criteria, you're treating it as the endpoint. And certainly that doesn't mean that you can't track against it, but the buys should be screen indifferent.
Great, thank you. We're in a period of huge innovation within our industry. I think that the report really shows that clearly. Looking into your sort of crystal ball, what trends would you be most excited about that's coming up on the horizon? Bit of sort of future gazing there. Caroline, perhaps I could ask you first for what your thoughts are.
Yeah, we see a growing interest for short form formats, such as 6-second ads. And we have collected 100 of them for a study we are conducting at the moment. And I have to say, I'm really impressed by how good they are. You know, they are applying all the best practices that we are communicating on for mobile advertising, you know, grabbing attention at the beginning, branding throughout, and also having ads that are that you can understand without sound. So it's really interesting to see the progress, you know, from just repurposed TV ad to those 6 ads that are really designed for mobile. And I think it's interesting because you can see as well that they are starting to be used on TV as well in the US. So it shows some progress. You know, it looks like we are breaking free from the legacy of the 30-second ads, you know, the landscape ads that we get on mobile since 2 years.
Great. Paul, what are your thoughts on stuff that excites you over the next 12 months?
Yeah, I guess you know, a bit of context. You know, we feel like there's increased importance attached to, you know, measuring you know, video impressions, and I think that sort of coincides with the increase in spend that we're seeing. But what we're also seeing is a divergence of, you know, video viewability standards, whether or not that's the supply side, the buy side attached to an agency, or the buy side attached to an advertiser. And I think from you know, putting my publisher hat on, what's exciting for publishers is the development of automated delivery tools to hit viewability standards that are now available at the ad server level, whether or not that's DFP or Freewheel or Brightcove. So, you know, even though there is, you know, potentially a challenge with that, you know, divergence of video viewability standards, publishers will have those automated tools available to enable them to potentially hit those standards, develop their own standards, and also, you know, protect and increase their video CPM. So, you know, I'm pretty excited about that automation.
Great. No, it's exciting changes in the market coming over the next sort of 6 to 12 months, I think, for sure, around that area. Finally, Melissa, perhaps I could ask you for what you think is coming up on the horizon.
Absolutely. Well, in the television convergence world, there's obviously a lot happening, which I think is very exciting, and it's good for all of us in the advertising world, where we have an opportunity to come together and create scale that's attractive, at least for advisors. I think there's a lot of new technologies that are being developed that we're going to be able to benefit from as an industry. Technologies like blockchain, that introduce heightened transparency into this ecosystem, that back to the earlier question, make it even a more comfortable market for a traditional TV buyer to buy into this, or a traditional television publisher to go big in digital. We're seeing that certainly the advance of machine learning and optimization systems where we're able to manage and perform results that are much better than we've been able to do in the past. We have to be faster, we have to be quicker, and we have to be compliant. We have to ensure that we're not only delivering great technology within the world of programmatic, but we also have to do it, again, with the mindset that we're adhering to the rules and regulations that better the industry overall. So technologies like blockchain or machine learning and the investments that we are all making in our technologies to leverage those capabilities will help provide innovation, but innovation that's safe and effective for a medium that's going to require it.
That makes a lot of sense. I love the idea of using the automation not just for performance as it has been done in the past, but also more importantly, perhaps for compliance reasons as well. That's great. So that's all of the questions and all the time that we had for the panel today. Thank you so much to our panelists, Caroline, Paul and Melissa, for taking time out of their day to answer those questions. And now I'll hand back to Marie-Claire at IAB Europe for the closing.
Thanks, Ben. Yeah, thanks very much, Ben, Caroline, Paul and Melissa for your time and discussion there. That was really interesting. So just before we close, just a quick reminder, so you can access the report that we've been discussing on the IAB Europe website, and you will be able to access the recording of this webinar also. And there is a short survey at the end of the webinar. We do appreciate your feedback, so if you just have a short amount of time to complete that would be most appreciated. Other than that, all I have to do is thank everyone for attending, and I hope to see you all soon in our next webinar. Thanks very much. Bye.